I mostly read public domain books here on Glenn Reads Books to You, and they were written a long time ago, so they're usually racist, or sexist, or bigoted, but in there somewhere is a story, and that's why those stories are famous. Other times, I read works from independent authors, and they're delightfully not racist, but they might have adult language or adult situations, like, making sex. So that's your warning, but I'm sure you're grown up enough to handle it. Don't write to me complaining. Entschuldigung, ich Schwester ist schlecht. Oh, god damn it. I'm trying to get ready for my trip to Germany, and you had to come over, didn't you? And you want me to read you a goddamn story. Well, welcome to the Glenn Reads Books to You mansion. It's a fun little bit where I pretend to live in a mansion and not just recording in my basement. This is where I read the hottest public domain books and short stories. This week, a cute little one-off before I start another bigger book. It's called What Luck? A Study in Opposites by Abbie Farwell Brown. Want to hear about Abbie Farwell Brown? Sure you do. She was born August 21st, 1871, and died March 5th, 1927. Died before she ever got a chance to witness the power that was the band Nirvana. She's an American writer whose works include The Lonesomest Doll, that's not a word, The Flower Princess, 1904, John of the Woods, 1909, sounds like a romance novel, The Lucky Stone, 1914, and she wrote several volumes of children's poetry, including A Pocket Full of Posies, Fresh Posies, 1908, her books of adult poetry, yes, including The Heart of New England, 1920, and The Silver Stare, 1926, no, that sounds romantic, were less successful. Her first children's book, The Book of Saints and Friendly Beasts in 1900, was inspired by her first trip abroad, specifically by the carved choir stalls in the Chester Cathedral depicting the life of Saint Swearberg. The book retells children's stories of the animal encounters of various saints. That's where I got the second saints from. Brown would write other collections, retelling old tales for contemporary child audience. In her Days of Giants, 1902, featured stories from Norse mythology and remained a standard text in libraries for several generations. Tales of the Red Children, 1909, co-written with James McIntosh Bell, featured Canadian Indian folklore. Horrible title. You want to hear a fun fact? Sure. Brown wrote song lyrics for the progressive music series Silver, Burdett and Company, and was composer Mabel Wheeler Daniels wrote the song On the Trail, which became the official song of the Girl Scouts of the United States of America. Well, I got nothing else. Got a lot of time before the grandfather clock goes off. Tell me when to shut up and start reading. By the time this is released, I will be in Germany and visiting my sweet, sweet friends, Wanda and Emmanuel. And Emmanuel goes to a bar in the small town they live in, which I'll be staying at too. Which I'll be going to this bar, and he knows the bartender. He told him that I'm coming, and the bartender said, you don't have to just make it special. You can take your beer outside, unlike most places in America, and I've never had that. And then he said, what else can we do to make it special? Because you can get that in places like Texas. And he goes, what if we gave him a giant glass boot for a glass to drink his beer in as he walks around the street, just to embarrass him? And I said, that's a lot like coming to Minneapolis wearing a giant 10-gallon cowboy hat. People are going to make fun of me, but I'm going to do it anyways. Well, with that, why don't we retire to the library and read this book? Well, there you go. Why don't you get your little selfish butt cheeks seated in that chair as I read to you this cute little short story written by what? Yes, I know. Yes, I have a partially constructed tree over there. Well, it's December. I'm going to start decorating for Christmas. I own a mansion, for cripe's sakes. I'm going to have to put up lights. No, it's not a real tree. That's the reason why it's partially constructed. You don't construct a real tree. Who has real trees anymore? It's a lot of work. I do it every once in a while when I want to feel like I'm special, but it's a lot of work, and it smells a lot, and the animals get in. They knock the tree over, and all the water Look, Why do you suddenly have all these standards about Christmas? He wasn't even born on that day. They just co-opted that from a bunch of pagans. He's actually born in June. All right, let's just read the story. What luck! Side by side on the crowded waiting bench of the infirmary sat two women, each with a child at her elbow. Oh, this is going to be like Baby Island. This is just going to be porn for old women that love babies. Oh, who had been eyeing each other furtively, yes. Oh, they were silently criticizing in different languages. Her mourning must have cost so much money, thought Mrs. Rogazovich. That's an unfortunate. Enviously, looking down at her own pitiful saffron coat. Celio. I'm probably not saying that right. Let's look that up. It's a short story. I got time to do this kind of stuff. There's nothing. It's Spanish and Italian for heaven or sky. Okay, I'm probably mispronouncing it. What a terrible hat, mused the other woman, considering the purple velvet creation that crowned the frowsy locks of her neighbor. Well, she could have no care to hold the love of her husband. Yeah, and she wiped a tear with her black-bordered handkerchief. I totally read that wrong. The eyes of little Stephanie, who stood at the knee of Mrs. Rograzovich, were red and swollen, but not with weeping. Even the subdued light of the waiting room made her squint horribly. Oh, she kept her eyes turned from the window. This brought in direct line, her neighbor, the pale, emaciated little boy at the other woman's side. What the hell is going on in this story? Stephanie was 5. The boy, seemed older. He hung his head and never looked up. Stephanie was ready to make friends, for she had grown tired of the long wait. But Palio's mother was in the way. She was Burp continually bending over the boy, smoothing his hair, or Burp kissing his forehead. It would seem to Stephanie a very silly fashion. Stephanie's mother never kissed her at all. Gradually, Stephanie edged nearer. Hello, she said, in a stage whisper suited for the solemn occasion. Is your eye sick too? The boy stared, giving a blinking glance from big brown eyes, and nodded. What is with these diseased, sickly children? Yeah, they look red like mine, only worse, commented Stephanie after this revealing look. Oh, but they'll fix themselves all right if they're lucky. The lady said so. Again, the boy glanced at her pitifully and said nothing. Do you go to kindergarten? Asked Stephanie. The boy shook his head. I don't go nowhere, he said. Well, I guess you're too big for kindergarten. Oh, it's the grandest place, went on Stephanie ecstatically. Oh, but I had to stop when my eyes got sick. What the hell is this story? What makes your mother wear those black clothes? Oh, I hate black clothes. My father died. My mother ran off, volunteered Stephanie, and I think he went to be my father ran off, and I think he went out to be a soldier. Mrs. Rafferty says it was because, Stephanie, you shut up, said Mrs. Rograzovich, jerked her by the arm. The attendant was saying something. 86, he repeated. It was the number on the red ticket that Mrs. Rograzovich clutched in her not over-clean fingers. What is going on? Come on, you, Stephanie, snapped the mother. And the slatternly woman. Slatternly. Well, it's a short story. We got time to look this stuff up. Dirty, untidy. Well, I would have figured that one out. With the curly-haired child stepped forward to the table. Yes, there was no doubt about it. Stephanie was a case of that tubercular eye trouble, which affects so many children of the poor. Oh, trouble caused by constitutional weakness, lack of care, and wholesome food. Unless properly treated, Stephanie would become partially or wholly blind someday, and the pretty blue eyes would never play their part in a world where all the eyes are needed. This book is cruel. But Stephanie was in one respect luckier than Palio, who still waited, circled by his affectionate mother's arm. Strange, negative, quote-unquote, luck that consisted in not being too much loved by anyone. You better not leave her here, said the doctor after he had examined the poor little eyes. The woman blinked. How long must she stay? She asked cautiously. Well, maybe 3 weeks. It's an average case, I should say. I would take the best care of her, he added kindly, but Mrs. Rograzovich was not worrying as he surmised. I don't care. Will she grow well forever? She asked. She might not be blind, eh? She can be cured if you keep up the treatment as we tell you. After she goes home, you must bring her back for examination. Give her milk and wholesome food, well cooked. No donuts and candy. How are poor people getting donuts? The doctor referred to Stephanie's card. Clean up your house and keep it in better condition. We shall keep an eye on Stephanie. And he probably winked at her a little bit and tapped his nose. And if you can't do all this, we must find a better home for her. Ooh, the woman looked sulky. How much does it cost to keep in the hospital? She asked. And she was told the usual charge was $17.50 for a week. But if, $17.50, whatever. But what if she could not afford so much? The superintendent would probably arrange to let her pay what she could. Well, I can't pay anything for a sick child, exclaimed the woman. I could just pay rent and get some food. 2 years ago, my man goes off. I don't know, maybe he's fighting, but I don't get nothing. That's all right, said the doctor. You go see the superintendent. We'll look after Stephanie anyway. Oh, by the way, will you sign this paper giving us permission to fix her adenoids? And tonsils while she's here? I dare say you don't care. Oh, no, I don't care. That's in italics, said the woman casually with an air of one conferring a favor. Of course, she did not realize how great a privilege Stephanie was getting. Few citizens know the Massachusetts Eye and Ear Infirmary is the only hospital in the city where a child with a trouble like Stephanie's would be taken in and cared for. All such cases are referred to the infirmary. Oh, how would Mrs. Rogranovich guess that the kind hands which were to care for the child and the kind faces surrounding her belonged to the best specialists and the best nurses anywhere to be found? Oh, she only knew that for the time being a burden was lifted. And this was Stephanie's advantage over Palio, whose mother loved him too fatuously to give him his only chance. 87, called the superintendent after Stephanie and her mother passed on. I like how I read it as if the superintendent, who's just calling out numbers, is shocked by the numbers he's reading. Whatever, I can do what I want. It's my show. It's Palio's turn. She says she could not spare me. She loves me too much. And besides, my father would not let her, the boy answered a question in a hollow voice. He was very sick, and last week he died. Oh, he would not let me be in the hospital. Helplessly, he raised the doctor's eyes, which could have been very beautiful. The eyes of a poet or a painter. But why, then, did not your mother bring you back for treatment, as I told her? Asked the doctor again. The woman began to weep. She said she could not leave my father, interpreted the boy. She loves him very much. Once she did try to come here with me after the visitor called, but she could not find the way. She says her head is sick, and she lost her ring. That made her very sad indeed. Did she give you the medicine regularly? The boy hesitated. Yeah, sometimes, he said, when the visitor came. I think my mother forgot. Oh, she's so sad about my father. She sat in a chair and rocked all day. She's very kind and loving, and she held me on her lap and cried and cried. The doctor frowned. Is there anyone here who can speak Italian? He called out to the waiting crowd. A man stepped forward. The doctor sent Palio aside. Tell her, please, that unless she brings Palio here regularly and gives him the medicine every day, I will not answer for these consequences. Do you see that boy over there? The doctor indicated with a tiny fellow with a fine Greek features, whose mother was crying over him in the corner. Well, that woman would not leave him in our care because she was too obstinate, and although she lives close by, she would not take the time and the trouble to bring him in for treatment. So now he will lose the sight of one eye at least. Yeah. Well, tell Mrs. Valentino that Palio's eyes are very bad, and he will fare worse than that boy, unless she does as I say. Well, the woman burst into hysterical grief and clasped Palio passionately, mumbling endearing syllables into her musical tongue. Wow, musical tongue. The boy's brown eyes filled too, and he tried to comfort her, pitying himself for her many troubles. The mother led Palio away. She'll not come back, thought the doctor. I'll see it in her face. The social service department will have to get busy. The social service department of the infantry did get busy, as in all such cases. When Palio did not reappear, they went to look him up. The visitor coaxed and re-urged the dazed, insufficient mother, but it was hopeless. Finally, the case was reported to the proper authorities. But already Palio's mother had loved him to death. Stephanie was not to see her little neighbor again. Story is horrible. Meanwhile, for Stephanie herself, there began what was, apart from a little discomfort at the beginning, the happiest 3 weeks she'd ever known. To begin with, her poor ragged clothes were taken away, and then she had a lovely warm bath in a tub. In itself, a novel experience, with her yellow curls nicely brushed, sweet and clean from top to toe. How long are these curls? She was then tucked away in a little white cot all by herself. This also was an unheard-of luxury. In a sunny, airy room where other children were playing about like happy family. At first, poor little Stephanie was too miserable to do more than snuggle into the soft, sweet pillow and allow herself sulkily to be fed with an easy swallowed things and a kind voice associated with strong and gentle hands attended to her wants. But Stephanie slept most of the time, dreaming of, happy faces, maybe some merry laughter, feet running about a kindergarten. After 2 days of existing as a mere little mollusk, one morning Stephanie sat up, began to take notice. A beautiful white-clad being put her into a neat cotton frock and a pinafore. Only Stephanie's scarred shoes were left to remain of her home that seemed mercifully far away. They tried a shade over her eyes to help the squint, and for the first time she looked around with interest at the nursery. What a pleasant place it was. Stephanie had never seen anything nearly so beautiful, except for kindergarten. Poor little Stephanie. It had been hard luck to give up on kindergarten, just when she was growing so happy there. The school nurse had seen that she must stop, but, there was a rose on the table here, too. A red rose. Children playing games. Just like a real kindergarten, but these children were not all of Steffi's age. Some were bigger, some much littler. Why, in the very next cot to her lay a wee baby sucking at a bottle. Nurse said its mother was sick in the other room, and Stephanie thought that this baby would be nicer than a doll to play with. That's weird. It's a human being. It's not a... Okay, and that's actually not me doing that this time. It says, and comma, then in italics, with an exclamation point. Over there was a little black live doll with eyes that rolled and blinked and real hair standing up all over its head and a big red bow. Stephanie grinned at the doll and the doll grinned back. Stephanie waved her arms up and down and the funny doll stretched her mouth in a wide-toothed glee and did just what Stephanie did. This was better even than kindergarten. I don't like what's happening. What else was there in this lovely room? Stephanie looked around. Well, there were 9 little beds against the walls, and as many more in the next ward, and as soon as she learned that, she began to investigate. Most of the beds were empty in the daytime, and across the room from Stephanie, a big boy sat up among the pillows, reading, and laughed when the nurse told him a funny story, but could only whisper in reply, holding on to his throat. Stephanie understood perfectly, and was very sorry for the poor Tom, for she was sorrier still when dinner time came, when she and the other children gathered about little low tables with bibs on. Soup was all that poor Tom could swallow, but Stephanie could eat fish, and potato. There was nice pudding, too. Poor Tom. Stephanie ate ravenously, and after 2 days fast, no puddings ever happened in that home that she had left. The 20 children were too busy eating to talk. More bread and butter? More milk? Yes, indeed. All you want. It sounds like it's going to take a weird twist, like these kids are going to be... I don't know, like any fairy tale turned into some kind of cake. Just think, Stephanie could have all the milk she wanted. That had never happened before in all of her life. She thought she must be in heaven. The children were all shades and manners. Perhaps that was like heaven too. Who knows? Well, maybe in this author's diluted because of its times kind of way, she's trying to be progressive. Maybe I should read that other book that she wrote about the native people of Canada with the title that's kind of offensive. Maybe she's trying really hard to be inclusive. Most of them were curious foreign names, but they all spoke English, and after a fashion, some of them were just learning the ways of good Americans at the table and elsewhere. Frank, who sat next to Stephanie, he was a little pig. He made faces, and I spilled his milk and scattered the crumbs, so that she, the angel in white, scolded him and made him sit by himself at another table until he could be more careful. But Stephanie liked John, with the big gray eyes, who was a little gentleman, although he wore such a funny thing like a bonnet on his head. It is a big boy of 8. Stephanie loved at first sight Dottie Dimple, with little pink cheeks, and one lovely blue eye. She cried when John explained that one day Dottie had poked a pair of scissors into the other eye so that it would never see anymore. This is disturbing. Why don't we take a little break? This story is really freaking weird. It's just basically the torture of small children. And mild racism? The only thing that's going to make me feel any better about this right now is if we get down to my basement. I know, you hate the basement. You hate it. You hate the basement. Everyone hates the basement. My basement's fine, except for the drip. Why don't we go down there and just learn about another book for a change? One that comes from Penguin Random House, and I'll play a guitar for you. It's fine. It's warm in the basement from the carbon dioxide. All right, I'll see you down there. There you are. As you walk towards me and I stand here playing this guitar under this naked light bulb. You hear how I'm playing? I'm getting better. Take a seat. I finally got you a folding chair from the last episode. Sit in the chair. I'm going to play for you and tell you about this new book from Penguin Random House called Technically Yours by Denise Williams. Interesting to note, Denise Williams is on tour. I'm sure you wanted to hear that. What do we learn about Technically Yours? You'll laugh, you'll swoon, and you'll root for Pearl and Cord's happy ending, says New York Times bestselling author Carly Fortune. Her last name's Fortune. And if you're a New York Times bestselling author, you're not really. It's a scam. I've been saying this for years on so many episodes. Go look it up. It's horseshit. 8 years ago, he fell in love with a stranger he couldn't have. Today, she's back in his life, and the sparks between them threaten to set her career on fire. Oh, God, that sounds hot. Pearl Harris has learned the hard way to be careful in work and in love. She has the chance to make lasting change at Our Code, a nonprofit aimed at inspiring high schoolers to code. But a recent scandal, it's a good little capitalist thing to do, just get them to work real early. But a recent scandal puts its reputation at risk, further complicating things. Pearl didn't expect the one man she never stopped thinking about to join as the newest member of the board of directors. Cord Matthews fell for Pearl when they met in an elevator 8 years ago. She's just his type. Smart, capable, it makes him laugh. Were they stuck in the elevator for 9 hours? How does he know this much about her? And then when she broke his heart, he decided love wasn't for him. They dated for a while. And then they reconnected after years with no contact. Cord was tempted to consider breaking his ban on serious relationships, but going public with a romance between them might derail Pearl's career and the progress she's made at Our Code. While Pearl and Cord are both hesitant to trust their feelings and take a risk, it soon becomes impossible to keep ignoring the electricity between them. Oh, God, Cord's a skilled programmer, but a workplace romance might spell disaster for both of them. And love isn't easily debugged? Yeah. Okay, well, that's Technically Yours by Denise Williams. It's coming out paperback for $17 on December 5th, 2023. You can get it from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Bookshop.org, Hudson Booksellers, Powell's, Target. And you know that Denise Williams is going to be ordering her own shit because she's too proud to actually go to this store and pick up a copy off one of the shelves. She doesn't want to be there amongst the other people that shop there. She's the kind of person that's like, I don't even know what coding is exactly. I just know that it's like something that it seems nice to make kids do for some weird reason to get them working. I don't know. I'm just going to get on the internet that I pay for, full bandwidth, and I'll order this from Walmart. Well, with that, my fingers hurt, and I don't like the way you look sitting in that chair. It doesn't compliment your body. Why don't we go back upstairs where we can finish reading the rest of this horrible story about tortured children? Well, there you go. Why don't you put your prideful buttocks in that seat and let's finish this weird story. I know that people, like grandparents, just love babies. They love to read about babies. They love to watch like Lifetime movies that involve little babies that inspire other people to be better people. Old people love babies. I think she was fairly old when she wrote this. So she loves babies, but she also wants to see them bless their little hearts as they're suffering greatly. Who wants to read a story about suffering kids? And why specifically the eyes? Why does she want little kids to suffer in their eyes all the time? She could have picked anything. It could have been pancreatic cancer. I don't know. Damaged spleens. There could have been a million other things she could have wrote about. Fingernail disease or foot fungus. Something, anything, but she picked the eyes specifically for some reason. And she just is writing about, oh, they're so sweet. They're so sweet as their eyes are deteriorating in their heads. It's so weird. But let's finish this horse shit. Then there was Sammy, with the funny face and the big nose, well, I wonder what's wrong with his eyes, who looked like a little old man in a baby's dress. Sammy could not hear when you spoke to him, but most of the children forgot all about eyes and ears between dressing times, and they had so much to make them happy. After dinner, the children put back their chairs nicely. And then the Victrola played lovely music. Oh, it's pleasant to see all the little children stand and salute when they heard the Star-Spangled Banner. Even the deaf ones did, as they saw the others do. My God. On sunny days, they played out on the balcony off the ward below. It was a pity that they had no balcony of their own, leading from the nursery. Greatly, it is needed. But it will come, no doubt, with the great many other needed things. When more people know about the infirmary on Charles Street, oh, is this a giant ad for the infirmary? Maybe she went there and then she's like, I'm going to write a book about this and they're going to make some serious money. And the good luck it brings to little children and big when more parents reading the story of Palio, Stephanie, and the others will understand that what helps children protects the health of the whole community, including their own little ones. The ounce of prevention has gone up in the scale of modern values. Oh, it's worth not pounds, but tons of possible cure. Yeah, this is just turning into a big ad. Every child kept out of an asylum is a civic asset. Every penny spent in the prevention of blindness or deafness is an investment placed on the interest 1,000-fold. Oh, those are the wonderful days for babies like Stephanie, who had seen too little luck in their lives. Breakfast at 6:30. They wake them up at 6:30 in the morning. A luncheon of fruit and milk at 9. Dinner at 11. And supper at 4. Oh, yeah, this is written a long time ago. For them, dinner was like a brunch. I don't know. And a supper at 4:30. All the bread and butter a child could eat. All the milk she wished to drink. And most of the children drank a quart of milk every day. Milk makes me gassy. I can't drink milk. I've never been able to. The waters that are released from my anus, I would be the one kid here be like, no more milk for me, please. I would like, no, I understand. You're giving me another glass. That's very nice of you. I would not like another glass of milk. Could I just have a glass of water that doesn't have urine in it? And the bread and butter chocolate and the milk to which most of the children drank a quart of milk every day. That's too much milk. No wonder Stephanie began to seem less pale and thin before the nurse's eyes. No wonder her eyes began to get better almost directly. Soon she was running and racing about the nursery among the liveliest of them all. One day a visitor came to talk for a minute with the nurse. She had been to the clinic, and after they had been given the extra privilege, to Stephanie this person seemed a beautiful grown-up lady. But Mamie was really only a nice girl of 16 with happy, sunburned face and shining brown eyes. Oh, how convenient to have eyes that are shining and brown. Stephanie squirmed with delight when Mamie took her up on her lap while she talked with the nurse. "She has eyes like mine were," said Mamie in an aside to the nurse, but Stephanie heard and hoped. Would her gray-blue eyes ever get as big and brown like this nice person's? She wondered. Apparently eyes are the center of the universe in this story. "Oh, sure. Oh, I'm all right now," said the visitor in answer to a question. "They pronounce me O-K in 2 capitals. Just look how fat and brown I am. Say, it don't seem possible. Why, I was sicker than Stephanie when I came here, wasn't I?" The nurse assented. "Well, I'll never forget how I felt working in the store, my eyes all swollen and weepy. I was down and out, all right. For, of course, I haven't a relation on God's earth. And with my salary, how could I go to a specialist? Then a lady gave me a hunch about this infirmary. So here I came, and everybody was mighty good to me. Hey, you know, don't you, dearie?" She caught Stephanie up close. "Yes," affirmed Stephanie, snuggling. This is totally a fantasy for old people. "Well, I came here all in," Mamie went on, "but what a difference when I left. Oh, just to think of going to the country for a rest. Instead, I came back to the store. No, nothing to pay for all either. Some dream." "Did you have a good time in the country?" asked the nurse sympathetically. "Oh, I'll say so," said Mamie. "I lived outdoors 4 solid weeks, sitting on the piazza or walking in the garden. Like a lady, Oh, they made me lie down to rest after dinner. Rest! Well, the chief thing I had to do to tire me was to eat. Oh, and such eats. Eggs. And milk between meals, too. It's too much milk. Say, the girls at the store will sure think I'm kidding when I tell them about it. Well, you'll be sure to come back here, as the doctor said," charged the nurse. "You know, you will have to be careful still." "Oh, you bet I'll be careful," said Mamie earnestly. "I'm not going to take any chances. The doctor made it plain enough what I've got to do. I'll keep my eyes, thanks. Now I've got 'em back." Well, the trouble that Stephanie, Apollo, and Mamie had not certainly been cured once and for all. It's likely to reoccur if care is relaxed. Each time, it makes a worse scar in the eye with the increased handicaps. What the hell is going on in this story? We moved past child torture, and now we're just like in this informational part of the book. The hardest part of the follow-up work of the infirmary is to make the parents understand this and to watch patiently. 3 weeks in a country home at the cost of $5 a week following 3 weeks treatment at the eye and ear infirmary has stood between Mamie and blindness. The infirmary has had an emergency fund, all too inadequate for such cases. What is a country?" asked Stephanie when Mamie had gone. "Is it my country 'tis?" She had an idea. It might be something to do with the relative of the Star-Spangled Banner. "Shall I have to salute it?" "Bless you," cried the nurse. "I guess you'll want to salute it when you see it for the first time." I just keep thinking about how here in America, you got a problem with your eye? You got to go to the ear, nose, and throat specialist. They're like, yeah, you can come in if you want. You're going to be in debt forever. And if you're like, I literally can't afford $4, then they say, good luck with your eyes. So this whole thing seems completely surreal to me, that they have like a fund on the side just to take in homeless people that can't afford treatment. I don't believe it. This sounds like horseshit. I don't think any country ever has operated this way. It seems impossible. "Bless you," cried the nurse. Okay, whatever. On the last Sunday of her stay, Stephanie had a surprise. The doctor had pronounced her eyes so much better that she could leave the following week. How much you want to bet her mom's not going to be around, and then this lady we just learned about is going to pick her up. Plump and rosy and bright-eyed, Stephanie was a pretty little girl, as one could wish to see. Oh, to be sure, there's a fly in her ointment. The doctor had not succeeded in turning her eyes into big brown ones like Mamie's, as Stephanie had suggested. The nurse assured her that blue eyes would probably wear better in the long run. Stephanie was playing peacefully by herself while the other children visited with their parents during 1 hour allowed for this every Sunday. Hey, the visitors see you, Stephanie, said the nurse, and in walked Mrs. Rogvanovich, saffron coat, purple hat, and all. She was a little cleaner than usual. There was more black upon her boots than upon her hands, but she was still striking in contrast to the hospital standards. Stephanie greeted her without enthusiasm. Oh, indeed, when she spied the familiar face, she shrank back into the skirts of the nurse, with a little gasp that told more than words. The mother flushed. Other mothers were watching. Well, Stephanie, she cried in astonishment mingled with pride, you look so good. Ain't you glad to see me, eh? Still, Stephanie held back. Your eyes get well, Stephanie. You'll be coming home soon. Yes. But Stephanie pouted and kicked the floor with her toe. Mrs. Rogvanovich turned to the nurse. The latter shook her head dubiously. Have you fixed up your house, as the doctor said? You know that she'll have to be kept clean and sleep in an airy room, and you have to feed her right and bring her here often for examination. Oh, the mother twisted uneasily. I'll fix the house up yet, she promised. I ain't had time, but I will. 2 weeks alone in the childless tenement had put new value on Stephanie, and the pretty, bright-eyed child seemed no longer a mere burden. I'll come back for you next week, she finished, touching Stephanie's curls with the first real tenderness she had ever shown. Goodbye, Stephanie. But at the end of her 3 weeks, Stephanie did not go home. Though her eyes no longer needed hospital care, when Mrs. Rogvanovich appeared, ready to claim her child, she was staggered with the counter-suggestion that Stephanie should go to the seashore for a month. Stephanie needs vacation, was the report. You must not deprive her of the chance. It may keep her from having a relapse. Every relapse is dangerous, and every month will give you time to fix up your house and get it ready for such a nice little girl to live in. The desired result came not without argument, but for now Mrs. Rogvanovich was set upon having her pretty child back again. But luckily, she was not deaf to reason, as Mrs. Valentino had been, and the assurance that Stephanie would receive 4 weeks' board in the country, free from some weight in the matter. Reluctantly, she consented that Stephanie should go. So, the very week that ushered poor little Palio into a still further country from which there is no return saw Stephanie saluting the wonders of the green fields and the flowers and the ocean shore. Her mother returned with a slow step to the empty tenement. Mrs. Rafferty next door was consumed with curiosity. When her head out the window, she spied a saffron coat and a purple hat. Entering dejectedly to the door below, unaccompanied. Where's Stephanie? She cried. I thought you was off after going to fetch home the child. The purple hat rose to the occasion with a jerk. Stephanie is going for a vacation on the seashore, said Mrs. Rogvanovich with dignity. Well, glory be, ejaculated Mrs. Rafferty, pulling her head and sinking into her chair. The news, swiftly imparted, raised considerably the standing of Mrs. Rogvanovich in the neighborhood. So everyone benefits from this. It just turns out if you just give money to this organization, it makes everyone happy. Presently, Stephanie's luck began to take another turn for the better. As soon as she was well out of the reach of the island, Stephanie's mother began to repent that she had let her go so easily. Others might covet the now precious possession. She began to suspect a conspiracy to keep Stephanie permanently exiled. There had been conditions set upon her return. For the first time, Mrs. Rogvanovich began to consider seriously the instructions that she received about hygiene and sanitation. And one morning, the neighbors were surprised by an unwanted activity in the 4th floor back. Clouds of dust, followed by the smell of soap, issued from the long unopened windows. Dingy articles were banged viciously and hung out to imbibe the unaccustomed sun. The week was a perpetual wash day. Mrs. Rafferty had her theory. At last she could stand there. She could stand the suspense no longer. She put her theory squarely to the test with a question. "I'm making ready for Stephanie's homecoming," she answered. Mrs. Rockvanovich was tired. What do you suppose anyhow?" "Blessed saints," ejaculated Mrs. Rafferty. "I thought you was going to take one lodger at least. The way you're making everything so grand and tidy. La sakes. Oh, ain't it is just for Stephanie." But it was her neighbor's next remark that smote Mrs. Rafferty nearly dumb. It was made with some hesitation. "Will you, tell me, about making, soup? I want to learn to cook." Whoa, when she could recover, Mrs. Rafferty gasped. "Cooking, is it? Heavenly powers. Well, I'll show you myself. Oh, I've been a cook all my life, till this lameness took me. I'm sure there's a diet kitchen around the corner, I'm told, where they'll give ye points." It was this repeated conversation that made the neighborhood hysterical. Mrs. Rockvanovich cleaning the house. Mrs. Rockvanovich learning to cook. Oh, it's changed Carter. She is entirely, Crater. Craytur. Nothing. Don't know what that word is, and we're not going to learn. "She is entirely," exclaimed Mrs. Rafferty to her gossip, "and it's changed home into which Stephanie will be coming from her vacation at the seashore. That's small blame to her man that he ran away from that home 2 years ago, and I'm thinking, but the woman will have no trouble at all getting a lodger these days. The way her room's been looking so nice and decent. Say, she's been after telling me about my child. Her ought to have more fresh air o' nights. And donuts, she says, is not healthy for infants." She's seriously feeding the kid donuts and candy? I thought you were poor. How are you affording donuts and candy? Were donuts and candy throwaway food back then that you just charged almost nothing for? Because I pay top dollar for my donuts and candy. It's not healthy for infants. Oh, the knowingness of her. Sure, they'll soon be after thinking Mrs. Rockvanovich, the president of the Improvement Society. The way she's getting intelligent and forthcoming. And she's with a child visiting at the seashore. So when Corporal Rockvanovich, newly discharged, returned to take a secret reconnaissance of the home which he had deserted for the sake of his country, and for his own peace of mind, he heard and saw the changes as made him decide not to re-enlist. This was another bit of luck for Stephanie, if you look at it from the right angle. And then there was kindergarten too, for tomorrow. Oh, there'd be no anticlimax after all in Stephanie's homecoming. Oh, that's the end of the story. Well, that was a little blunt ending. Okay. Well, I have no idea what to think about that. Why don't we go downstairs to the smoking room, where we're both just gonna take long draws off of a cigarette and try to figure out what the hell we just read. Well, there you go. Why don't you get yourself seated? My God, what the hell did we just read? It starts out as old people porn, which is they just love babies. And I forgot. My wife put parakeets down here. She thought it would liven the place up a little bit. And they're all dying of lung cancer here in my smoking room. When you're not around, I spend all my time in the smoking room, just chain smoking cigarettes. Just thinking about things like my trip to Germany. So it starts out as grandparent porn, just a lot of like children suffering, small, dejected, bless their hearts. They're still so innocent and pure, even though their eyes are falling out of their head. One of them is deaf because of ear, nose, and throat. They did have a kid with a throat problem. So she really covered all the bases on that place. And so then it's kind of about a parent that doesn't care about their kids. So you kind of think, okay, so is this kid going to get picked up by this other woman who is also at the hospital, who has beautiful brown eyes? and then, no, that doesn't happen. Suddenly the mom gets her act together because she misses her kid, which is nice, but that's just kind of more like Lifetime movie, sort of like Hallmark Channel porn, which is like, once I didn't realize I love my kids so much, and now that my kid's gone, suddenly I want to clean up my act to be a better person. It's, I guess people work that way. I don't know. It just seems really weird. But amongst all that, in between that is suddenly an ad for this place, literally naming the place and talking about how they can support the homeless people that can't get the kind of help they need, and especially to send a kid away to the beach and stuff. They can't get that without donations from people because the money to do that is so sad. Again, here in America, that's impossible. That just doesn't happen. You don't have like a little cash of money on the side. Usually you give that to the CEO of the nonprofit or the advertising company. That's all horse crap. But anyways, so that's going on. There's this kind of ad in the middle, really calling things out by name. And then all of a sudden it ends with the mom doing better. And then the husband, where you just say, well, the husband didn't really go off to war. He just left this horrible woman who smells like crap and her hands are dirty and she wears musty, gross clothes that she probably peed in at some point. But no, he does come back. He really did go to war, and which is kind of the fantasy of all kids that have lost a parent. It's like, well, maybe they just went off to war and he'll come back someday. I mean, I don't know if that's really the fantasy of all kids. It's just a trope that you've seen a lot. And so in that trope, it's true. Oh, the dead, screw my family, I'm going to go serve my country. Well, then you're not a bad person. You served your country. That's complicated. It seems a little weird. But he does come back, and instead of just going straight home, being like, did anything get any better while I was gone? Serving my country. Instead, he's just kind of asks around, how's my wife doing? What's her house like? Has she learned to cook? And then everyone's like, yeah, turns out the house is fine. She's been cleaning like crazy. Turns out her kid's at the beach because they have a program for homeless people to get good ear, nose, and throat care and eyes. And he goes, oh, wow. Well, coming back, not going to re-enlist. And that's how the story ends. What was the point of this book? I guess I'm going to go with advertisement, because otherwise it's old people porn, but you don't just want to do that. At least not back in those days. It's a little too weird, playing to some kind of person's weird twisted thing. I think it's just an advertisement. This woman wrote this just to kind of drum up money for this organization, which isn't a bad thing. She probably saw what they were doing, especially for people that can't afford it, and said, that's really nice of you. And so I will write a story to try to help you raise more money. So it's a good thing. She's doing a good thing. Of course, as an American, I realize this is fiction. This organization does not exist, nor has it ever existed. Basically, it's just fiction. Well, with that, thanks for listening, and I will see you next week. Well, it appears you found me in the part of the podcast I hate the most, where I tell you all about the places on the internet where you can find me. You can tell I hate this because of the sound effects making it sound like a stormy night in the drawing room of the damned. Now, there's that. Are you cool? I like cool people. It's the reason why I got involved in this business to begin with, just to meet cool people, not losers. So if you're cool, feel free to go over to my website, nuzzlehouse.com, which just points you to my link tree. Everything's on the link tree. Just go to the link tree if you want to see where I am. And of course, link tree has the dumbest URL in the world. linktr.ee/nuzzlehouse. It's the dumbest thing. If you go to nuzzlehouse.com, it's just going to reroute you over there after giving you some weird error about it not being secure. I hate it. I hate the internet. But if you go there, you get to hear some of the other stuff that I and my wife work on, like the Radio Mystery Theater show, where we try to recreate the same show that used to be on in the 70s, but they don't make any episodes anymore. So we make our own, and we just steal all their commercials. And also, just in the curious mind, we made a Christmas album. If you go to our link tree, you can see that we made a Christmas album. It's the first thing we did after getting married, which I think everyone should do when they get married, is start talking about the Christmas album they're going to make. And we're working on a new show where we give relationship advice by reading a paranormal smut. And since I think you might be cool, you can always just email me directly. glenn.nuzzles@gmail.com. But don't email if you're a nerdling or a dork. Now, back to business. I can't believe I drank all of them already. There's gotta be one left.